You start thinking about some of these just classic, intense rivalries in football. And that Milan-Inter derby that we just saw, the first leg of the Coppa Italia semifinal, that's 4 times these two have gone head-to-head already this season. Just crazy. But it did get me thinking, what is the atmosphere usually like for a derby, right? Because I don't know about you, but this one felt a little off at the San Siro, a little bit muted.
I think you're right. I think you picked up on something there. First leg, semifinal, there's always going to be a different kind of tension there. A little bit more cagey, a bit more of a feeling out process compared to the throwdown, drag them out, we got to win this league derby.
Right.
And then you add in the fact that you had a noticeable amount of, international fans, even some Inter supporters, shifting the sound a little bit. And then the absence of the Cardinelli must sell chants, that was definitely something people noticed.
Yeah.
And what does that tell us? What does that tell us about the shifting sentiment around Milan?
That is a good question. I mean, is it resignation? Is it, let's just focus on the game itself? It's hard to say. But then you look at the teams that came out onto the pitch. This was Milan's 4th different central defensive pairing in 4 derbies. Gabbia and Thea starting this time around. Feels like they're still trying to find that rock-solid foundation in these huge matches. And Inter, their injury and absence list, man, it was significant.
Oh, yeah.
Summer, Serbi, Pavard, Mkhitaryan, DeMarco, Arnautovic, Dumfries, Lautaro Martinez, even Asllani was out, and it looked like a tactical decision. Both managers really had to work with, what was available to them.
It really does, underscore just that constant balancing act these top clubs have.
Yeah.
Managing injuries, managing tactical needs across multiple competitions, it's a lot.
For sure.
And for Milan, that lack of defensive stability in such a crucial fixture, definitely a talking point.
Oh, yeah.
Are they lacking depth, or is Pioli still tinkering, trying to find the right formula against their biggest rivals? And for Inter, it was a chance to see, okay, how does the squad depth measure up in a high-stakes derby environment? Did they pass the test? What do you think?
Well, in that first half, it really felt like Inter were almost pacing themselves, right? The ball movement was surprisingly slow, and Milan seemed content to sit back and kind of, absorb, wait for those moments to pounce on a turnover. We did have a couple flashes, though. Martinez came up huge, denying a really, sharp left-footed effort from Leao.
Oh, yeah, crucial save. Showcasing that agility and those reflexes.
Yeah.
Those are the moments that can shift the momentum in a tight derby.
Absolutely. And then at the other end, Maignan, he had to be alert to keep out that Çalhanoğlu free kick and that Fratesi header. Fratesi's going over that header again and again in his mind.
Right.
That felt like such a golden opportunity to give Inter the lead.
It really underscores that experience and composure that, a guy like Mkhitaryan brings to that inner midfield. Those are the chances that those seasoned players, they just bury them. Do you think Fratesi was maybe, a little too eager in that moment?
Yeah, it felt like it, right? Like a touch rushed a little bit. But then right out of the break, just like that, the game, it sparks into life. Tammy Abraham's turning goal 2 minutes into the second half. It had that, that Olivier Giroud quality about it, that clever little pivot and finish in the box. But, you got to look at Bissek's positioning. He gave Abraham a good meter of space in the penalty area against a proven goal scorer.
That's where it gets really interesting, isn't it? Because one little lapse, one tiny lapse in concentration can just be so costly.
Yes.
Right? Especially in a derby where those chances, they can be so few and far between. And against the Milan side, who really, they needed that breakthrough. For Inter, especially with, kind of this more makeshift midfield, conceding that early in the second half put them right on the back foot immediately.
Yeah.
We talked about Fratesi earlier. Do you think his lack of that creative spark that, that Mkhitaryan has, do you think that contributed to their struggles coming back from that goal?
It's a fair point. Fratesi, he brings energy, he brings drive, but maybe not that intricate passing and vision to, to really unlock a defense, especially right after they've conceded a goal. And Inzaghi, clearly he recognized that they needed a change. About an hour in, triple substitution, Pavard on for Bissek, Zalewski for Carlos Augusto. And critically, Mkhitaryan comes on for Fratesi. That felt like such a big injection of quality for Inter.
For sure. Not only did it address that defensive issue, but it brought back that midfield control, that creativity. It was missing. And, the impact was almost immediate, right? Çalhanoğlu with the equalizer not long after.
Yeah.
His 3rd derby goal, and remarkably his first from open play after those 2 penalties. Now, the ball, it did take a deflection through a crowd of legs, and you could argue Maignan might have done better, but it found the back of the net. What did you make of Maignan reaction on that goal? Did he seem surprised by the deflection?
It looked like he was caught off guard a little bit, for
Yeah.
sure. But, you got to admire Çalhanoğlu's persistence,
Yeah.
right? And the accuracy from that range, even with the deflection, brought Inter right back into the game. And that symmetry with the goal timings, it was almost uncanny.
Oh,
Abraham in the 47th minute, Çalhanoğlu in the 67th. It's like a mirror image of their league points. 47 for Milan, 67 for Inter. Just a quirky coincidence, or does it tell us about where these two teams are at?
It's fascinating, right? Because it could just be a statistical anomaly, or it reflects the really tight nature of, the games that they've had this season.
Right.
Where Inter have just that slight edge in terms of consistency, which I think is reflected in their league position.
Right.
On the Milan side, Consecao made a couple of changes, and man, they raised some eyebrows.
Yeah.
Salto for Alex Jimenez, okay, felt like a pretty straightforward swap.
Yeah, fresh legs, same role, sure.
Fresh legs, similar role. But then that substitution of João Felix for Pulisic, that really sparked something with the Milan fans at the San Siro. I mean, they were not happy about it.
No.
What did that tell you about the perception of Felix and also their hopes for Pulisic in these big games?
Oh, it felt like a total vote of no confidence in Felix in that moment. I mean, Pulisic, even if he wasn't having the best game, is still seen as that threat.
Sure.
Someone that can create something from nothing. Taking him off for Felix, who hasn't consistently delivered those game-changing moments.
Right.
Clearly that frustrated the supporters. You could feel it in the stadium. But Maignan, wow, did he ever come up with some huge saves after that equalizer?
He did.
First, that vital stop on Zalewski after Walker's slip. I mean, that could have been a disaster for Milan. And then a really strong hand to deny, like a powerful shot from the man who just scored, Mkhitaryan.
Those saves were pivotal for Milan.
Yeah.
Absolutely pivotal. I mean, you saw Maignan's class. You saw the mental toughness to bounce back after conceding. I mean, without those interventions, Milan, they could have been heading into that second leg with a pretty significant deficit to overcome.
Oh, yeah.
And then Leo had a decent look for Milan. A right-footed shot just flashed wide before he, too, was replaced by Chuck Ways. Consecao taking off both Leao and Pulisic in a derby when you're chasing a win. Felt a little counterintuitive, don't you think?
I mean, yeah, it did. Leao, even if he's been a little inconsistent lately, is still their main attacking threat. Taking off, essentially your two most creative players in a really tight derby, it did make you think, well, is Consecao settling for the draw here? In the end, first leg, it ends 1-1.
It does.
And man, only 3 minutes of stoppage time were added. You consider all the substitutions, the 2 goals. It was a little surprising. Almost felt like both teams thought, okay, let's just head into the second leg all square. What did you make of that limited added time?
It really felt like a mutual agreement. Maybe a feeling that on both sides, they didn't have the energy, they didn't have a clear advantage to really push for a winner in those last few moments. But draw in the first leg, it leaves everything to play for. It sets up a really fascinating second leg back at the San Siro on April 23rd. Inter will likely have Dumfries back, Lautaro Martinez back. It strengthens those attacking options significantly, but as you said, they're also navigating a busy schedule, so there's the potential for fatigue to set in. It really is all to play for, isn't it?
It really is. So a 1-1 draw to kick things off. It leaves us all hanging on for the second leg. So much to dissect. It was a real tactical battle, but both sides showing glimpses of their quality. But now, let's shift gears and talk about some of the off-field news surrounding Milan. There's been a lot of buzz lately about Fabio Paratici and his potential arrival at the club. Reports suggest he's already reached a verbal agreement with Giorgio Furlani to join the team. Now, this is where it gets interesting, because Paratici is currently serving a ban until the end of July. He can't officially start until after that date.
Right.
It's a bit of a unique situation, to say the least.
It is.
But it seems like Milan are willing to wait. They clearly see something in Paratici, despite the recent controversies surrounding him.
They must, especially considering his recent history. It's certainly a bold move by the club. What do you think it says about Milan's ambition and perhaps their willingness to take risks?
I think it shows that they're not afraid to make a statement. They want to compete at the very top, and they're looking for someone with Paratici's experience and track record to help them get there.
That's a good point. He does have an impressive resume. His time at Juventus, while not without its controversies, was undeniably successful. He was instrumental in building a dominant team, that won multiple trophies.
Exactly. And that's probably what Milan are hoping he can replicate at the San Siro. But there's also the talk of him potentially bringing Zlatan Ibrahimovic back into the fold, not as a player this time, but as like a dressing room figure, a link between the club and the team.
That's interesting. I mean, Ibrahimovic's influence, you can't deny it.
Oh. Well,
Both on and off the pitch.
yeah.
But he can also be a divisive figure.
Oh, definitely.
Especially if he's given a role with any sort of authority.
It's a gamble for sure. I mean, how much power and influence would they be willing to give him? How would he fit into the existing structure? Lots of questions there. But the bigger question for me is, is it ethically sound for Milan to be hiring a director who, is currently banned from football? I mean, his ban is related to administrative offenses during his time at Juventus. You've got the whole inflated transfer values, the issues with agents, the Luis Suarez Italian language test.
Right.
That's a lot of baggage. I mean, is it fair to bring someone like that into a club that's, trying to rebuild its image?
It's a valid question, And it's one that a lot of Milan fans are asking themselves right now. They're trying to reconcile their desire for success with the need for their club to operate with integrity and transparency. And it's not an easy balance to strike. I mean, can you demand immaculate conduct in football? I mean, especially when you consider, some of the widespread issues you see in so many metropolitan clubs, right? You've got your financial irregularities, your dealings with agents, connections to organized crime, inflated transfer values, irregularities. It's everywhere.
Yeah, it's hard to argue with that. It's almost like we pick and choose what to be outraged about sometimes. Look at Sandro Tonali. I mean, he had a ban, right? But now he's being praised for his resurgence at Newcastle.
It's true. It's true.
So where do we draw the line?
And that's the real question, isn't it? Where do we draw the line?
Yeah. And is it fair to hold someone like Paratici to a higher standard than some of his peers? Or is it hypocritical to turn a blind eye to his past transgressions just because he might be able to deliver trophies? It's a really, really complex situation.
It is. And it's one that really gets to the heart of the complexities and the often contradictory nature of ethics and success within Italian football, particularly when it comes to club leadership and recruitment.
Yeah.
It leaves us all thinking about that balance between on-field ambition and off-field conduct.
Yeah, it's a delicate balance for sure.
Yeah.
So while we wait to see how this all plays out, it's definitely a story worth keeping an eye on. There's a lot more to uncover here. But for now, we're going to leave you with that thought.